In today's show, the lessons the Portland Trailblazers can learn from the playoffs, plus why the Sacramento Kings are a reason for optimism and a cautionary tale, all at the same time. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen. Coming at you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're learning lessons from the playoffs. The Portland Trailblazers haven't played a meaningful game in 2 years. I would know because I've been talking to this microphone about them a lot. But I'm not going to let that deter me too much. I'm still watching and enjoying postseason basketball a great deal. And I came away from this weekend thinking about the lessons the Blazers can learn from the playoffs. That's what we're going to do to begin this show, is talk about the lessons we learned from the playoffs, specifically from the Sacramento Kings, some other sort of general lessons learned from the couple from the opening round of the playoffs. And then we'll close the show talking about what the Phoenix Suns are doing with their TV deal. I don't know if it's replicable in Portland, but it is proof that ownership absolutely matters. We'll talk about that to close the show. But first, let's talk about the Sacramento Kings. I think the Kings are a pretty good example of what the Blazers are trying to do. It's not a perfect comparison, and I do not mean to draw it as such. But I think in function and the sort of broad outline of what the Kings did to remake a bad team into a good team relatively quickly, I think is the exact sort of blueprint-ish that the Blazers are trying to follow. And I think if you let me tease that out a little bit. It's a reason that the Kings are both a clear sort of sign of optimism if you're a Blazer fan, and a cautionary tale because the playoffs are a sobering reality. Let me give you the details on sort of my thesis here. The Kings did what the Blazers are trying to do. They cashed in a young player, Tyrese Haliburton, in this case, Avery Simons, for a all-star or an impactful forward. I'm not sure the Blazers trade for a guy who's made an all-star team, but say they do, right? Say they get their Domantas Sabonis. Again, it's like they're starting in different positions, but let's say the Blazers, they cash in their young star, or their budding youngster, for a veteran difference maker up front. Then they make the right free agent signing. They get their Malik Monk, right? Their impactful free agent signing when they use their mid-level money to go do it. Then they make their trades around the edges, trading a first-round pick for someone like Kevin Huerter, a 6'7" wing who plays a little bit of defense, can shoot a little bit, and makes a dynamic offense. Then you get your draft picks right. You draft Keegan Murray, and while Keegan Murray might not have the highest ceiling, he's going to be an NBA player for a long time because he's already darn useful at what he does. And the Kings transformed from a team that loses 50 games to a team that finished third in the West. They're a reason for optimism. Now, the Kings did it in a couple different cycles. The Sabonis trade happened at the trade deadline, and then they went into the offseason and made a few moves after that. The Blazers are trying to do this in one cycle. It's going to be a little bit harder, but if you think like the moves that they made at the trade deadline set up the larger moves, maybe you can view it as two cycles, whatever it might be. They're pretty talent poor right now, though. But the Kings went from a bad team to a good team. Finished third in the West. They're legitimately good, a tough team. And why I think they're a reasonable facsimile for the Blazers, or at least a reasonable blueprint, outline, kind of philosophy to follow, is that the Kings weren't this team that became like something different than they were. They were like, it's a team that's not very good on defense. We're adding offensive parts, and we're going to be an elite offense, the best offense in the league, and we're still going to struggle on defense a bunch, but we're going to hurt people with our strengths. Our strengths are going to be so strong that our weaknesses matter a little bit less, particularly in the regular season. What we don't do well will not be as magnified because our strengths will be incredibly strong. We have so many ways to beat you. The Kings also hired a new coach, and they bought into the coaching system, and Mike Brown is a really good coach, and it helps. The Blazers are not going to hire a new coach this summer, so it's not like it's not a perfect comparison, right? It's not the new blood and new sort of invigorating, but the bad to good with the type of moves the Blazers are after. That first big move to trade for the All-Star, and the first, and then the sort of ancillary moves around that to trade for the parts that make you tick, right? The Malik Monks and the Kevin Huerters, which are not high-level All-Star typey names. Like Malik Monk looked great in the playoffs, but I don't think he was thought of super, super highly coming out of his season with the Lakers. It's like, yeah, the dude can score off the bench. For the Kings, he was like a 6 Man of the Year type candidate. And deservingly so. I've said this, if you're an everyday listener, you know this. I am pretty comfortable thinking the Blazers have a path back to the middle that's pretty easy. I think they can get back into the mix, back into the hunt, into that 5 through 7 range in the West. I think they are talented enough. Damian Lillard's really good. Jeremy Grant is a good basketball player. Shaedon Sharp's on the rise. Assuming those 3 gentlemen are back and you make the right moves around the margins, and the big move, right? Like you add an impactful frontline player of some flavor in the trade market. You add like a borderline all-star, someone who can become an all-star quickly. You know, De'Aaron Fox wasn't an all-star this year. He is an all-star because the Kings are good. So some of it is just like get good. You make the all-star team. It's a trick. It's a good trick. But regardless, I think the Blazers, I've said this a bunch. My everyday listeners will know. It's like, I think the Blazers' path back to the middle is maybe not clear, but it doesn't seem hard. The path beyond that is hard. And so while the Kings are a reason for optimism, you can do it, and the Kings did it. The Blazers obviously can't follow the same path, but they can follow something similar. Their loss to the Warriors in Game 7 on Sunday. You are listening to a Monday, May 1st show. Welcome to May. Shout out to my Justin Timberlake fans out there. It is indeed going to be May when you hear this one. But the Kings, when they lost on Sunday, after I'm recording this Sunday evening, is like they faced the harsh reality of the NBA playoffs. An incredible season. Like to me, an undeniably good season, and straight up probably a great one by most measures. And then they ran up into Game 7 and they played an all-time great player, and he put 50 piece on him, extra spicy sauce on the side, and they lose, they go home. That is the challenge that I think I've been trying to talk about this offseason with the Blazers, is that I think they can get back to being decent. But that tier, that circle, to win a playoff series in the NBA, you do not fake the funk. No, there are no bad teams in the second round of the playoffs. So it's my favorite time of the year. You still get a game every single night, and there are no bad teams left. You are only maybe some bad matchups and some bad series because some team is still way better than the other team. But there's no bad teams. You cannot fake it and win a playoff series. You can't be. The 8 teams left in the playoffs right now are good. Those are good basketball teams. And the Kings were a good basketball team. And they didn't win at home in a Game 7. They kind of got walloped at home in a Game 7, quite frankly, because the third quarter just didn't go their way. Up 4 at halftime just didn't go their way. It's why the Kings are both. They are both a reason for optimism, because it's like, hey, you can do it. And a cautionary tale, like, okay, but step 1 to get decent is hard enough. Like the Kings spent a long time in the desert. It's hard enough. But that to win a playoff series, playoffs are just tough. It is really tough. Top end talent matters, experience matters, and I don't think playoff experience really. The way I believe playoff experience matters is the stamina to not make mental mistakes. It's the stamina to keep up, to know the level of execution, the level of focus. It is the mental stamina to continue that focus and that level. And then it's sometimes just all-timers have all-time games, and that's what Steph Curry did. Brought his team home with an all-time performance. A really special one, albeit in the first round. The Blazers should try to emulate the Kings' path. Not the exact method, but certainly emulate the Kings' path, because it is possible, and I think Sacramento is possible. And if the Blazers do that, and they're like a 50-win team next year, it'll be impossible for me to say when they get into the playoffs they had a bad year. Impossible. If they're that competitive and that good in the regular season, and they end up in a similar sobering scenario, for me, it's a great year, but it is a reminder of how hard it is to win in this league. Some other lessons that I learned watching the playoffs. Things that I've learned over and over again watching the NBA, but I think they were hammered home this weekend. And it's a simple one. You want the ball. You want the ball. Let's talk about that lesson and why possessions matter in the postseason. But first, let me tell you about PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. You can download PrizePicks at PrizePicks.com, or you can use the app. I use the mobile app, and you can play any sport you want, but I play the NBA. And how it works is you pick between 2 and 6 players on every entry. PrizePicks sets the line on stats, and you go over or under their statistical projections. So for me, it's things like points and rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. And each night in the playoffs, I can say, okay, Nikola Jokic is going to go over in points. He's going to go under in rebounds. I got Jason Tatum scoring a bunch. And if I'm feeling froggy, I can pick 6 entries and say I'm going to get all 6 right and win a whole bunch of money, up to 25 times your money back. But you can set your own lines. 4 out of 6 win some money. 5 out of 6 correct predictions win some money. That's the great part. It's just you versus the PrizePicks projection. So go to PrizePicks.com right now or download the app to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. And first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks gives you $100. You deposit $50, PrizePicks gives you $50. Don't forget, enter that promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right. Let's talk about some other lessons learned from the playoffs. There are a thing. Sunday evening, grammar has escaped me. There's a thing in the advanced statistical world called the 4 factors. And what they are measuring, essentially, is who gets the most opportunities. It's turnovers and rebounds, foul shots. It's measuring who gets the most opportunities. And the Blazers have tried to introduce on the broadcast a handful of times via Corey Jez, their advanced stats specialist. He has a better title than that, but forgive me, Corey. I don't know it off the top of my head. But what all that is the very simple idea that if you have more chances to score than the other team, you're going to win. Most times. Unless the other team shoots the friggin' lights out, which is the other part of the 4 factors. It's just like shot making can beat opportunities. But the way to win in playoff basketball is chances. And that was hammered home this weekend. For me, it's been a consistent theme throughout the postseason. Teams in a league where offensive rebounding has been super de-emphasized over the last decade, teams that have gone to the glass and crash hard give themselves more opportunities to win the friggin' game. And teams that are really big and stay big and can control the glass have a chance to win the game. The Lakers, when they went small against the Grizzlies, had trouble. And then in the end of the series, they said, okay, we're not going to play those weird LeBron at the 5 lineups. We're going to put Wendy and Gabriel in. We're going to at least have like someone who's at least long and play to our strength and stay big. But when they started the games big with Vanderbilt and with Anthony Davis and with LeBron on the front line, they hammered the Grizzlies on the glass, and the Grizzlies' lack of size was a big problem. It was they just couldn't hang. In the second round of the playoffs, Phoenix goes into Denver, and Denver opens up a 20-point lead by virtue of taking 17 more shots through 3 quarters. 17 more shots. The Suns, they're not going to shoot 3-pointers. They have like 3 of the greatest mid-range shooters the league has ever seen. They're just going to shoot from the mid-range and hope that 55% from 2 beats 35% from 3. The math isn't perfect, but the way you can't win that math battle if you give up 17 more shot attempts and you don't take 3s. I think Phoenix actually might be fine taking 2s. Like, give me Kevin Durant and Devin Booker taking shots they can make and don't give up 17 more attempts. But Phoenix turned the ball over way too much in the first half and got crushed on the glass. So they are down 1-0 against Denver because they didn't have as many opportunities. On Sunday, in Game 7 in Sacramento, the Warriors down 4 on the road. And what do? They absolutely dominate the possession battle in the third quarter. And the third quarter changed the game. Found themselves up 10 heading into the fourth and held on. Sacramento just didn't have enough juice down the stretch to get all the way back, and they didn't shoot that well. Golden State had 13 offensive rebounds in the third quarter, and through the first 10 minutes of the third quarter, they committed 1 turnover. 13 second shots. Some of those are like, you try to tip it in and miss it, tip it in again. And 1 turnover. They crushed them in the possession battle. in that same stretch, Sacramento only turned the ball over twice. It's very, very, very clean quarter in terms of turnovers, but 13, the Warriors, can get a little sloppy. Their biggest weakness is probably they'll turn the ball over in bunches and they foul a lot. And those two things, we'll see if that comes up in the second round, but they didn't give up a bunch of free throws, so that's opportunities. They didn't turn the ball over, and they got a bunch of second chance opportunities. The Warriors also missed somehow every single free throw they took in the third quarter. If they make those free throws, the game's a blowout heading into the fourth. It's a blowout. Turned into a pretty easy win, but it's a blowout because they dominated the possession battle. You can't win in the playoffs if you are a team that gives up extra possessions. And guess what? Your Portland Trailblazers did that all stinking year long. There was a time for most of this season when the Blazers turned the ball over more than any other team in the league. They were loose with it. Some of it was they were trying a bunch of sort of get Dame off the ball type of offense stuff. Some of it was Dame had a career high in turnover percentage going for most of the season and finished with it. But he was way, 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 way below his career levels. And then he ended up kind of at his career levels by the end of the season. But they were loose with the ball all year. It was a huge problem, particularly early in the season. I think that's probably 60, 70, 30 players over coaching, but certainly scheme is a big part of it. 30% to me is a large percentage, maybe small to you. But they turn the ball over a bunch. And they're a bad rebounding team. That's not the makings of a playoff team that wins. So if Portland wants to transform this summer, they want to follow that path. That's, I don't know if Sacramento laid out. I'm kind of maybe, it's the Blazers are not going to be the Kings. So if they want to follow the path to get good, part of that has to be addressing those problems. If they do trade Anthony Simons, which they might, Ant was not super clean with the ball. He was not super. He had some turnover issues, particularly in bunches when he would just get the teams would get really physical with him and he wouldn't be strong with the ball. Although he got better, certainly better in that regard as the season went on. But he started the year just having some issues with it. But if they do trade Ant and they do make the big trade, they're going to need another ball handler. And they're going to need more rebounding. They're just going to need it. If you're going to, and they're going to, and then when they do, and it's we'll talk about it, but if you're going to commit a bunch of money, $30 million a year to Jeremy Grant, which they should at this point, right? If you let Jeremy Grant walk, it's a mistake. They screwed up the whole plan. How much they pay him is another conversation, but they absolutely need to pay him. But if you're going to pay Jeremy Grant a whole bunch of money, he's never been a good rebounder. And he's pretty much a power forward. He could play either spot, but he is slow-footed enough and not enough of a playmaker that you'd probably want him to naturally play four on offense. On defense is another question. I think, again, the slow-footed, I think you probably want him to play four, but the real solution for the Blazers is get someone else that plays forward, and so we don't know what position anyone plays. We say they got two forwards. They're both 6'9", and they do some stuff, and one of them's better at rebounding. That's the trick. That's what they need to do. They don't need to worry about, okay, we need a power forward and get Jeremy Grant to play small forward. They just need another big forward who can rebound and probably play make a little bit. But the Blazers were 22nd in defensive rebound percentage this year. 22nd in the league. 22nd in the league. Bottom 10 in the league. And they finished 22nd in defensive rebound percentage, 22nd in turnover percentage. And I'm only counting those numbers through March 22nd, ironically enough, because that's the last game Dame and Ant and Nurk played. That was the shutdown game. I'm not counting the garbage time game where they're actually cleaner with the ball somehow. But that's not the Blazers. With all due respect, Jonathan Williams and Skylar Mays and et al. And a whole bunch of Kevin Knox is just not the team that's going to play next year. All those dudes could conceivably be on the roster, but to me, that's just not them. So I cut it off at March 22nd. The Blazers 22nd in turnover percentage. So the bottom eight in the league, or eighth worst team in the league in terms of turnovers. Bottom 10 in defensive rebound percentage, 22nd in the league, one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the league. To win at the next level, you have to value possessions. The Blazers, if they're going to win and they're going to follow the path, the way you win in the playoffs is opportunities. There are, I'm hitting you with rebound percentage and turnover percentage, and I mentioned the four factors at the beginning of this segment, but you do not need a pocket protector and glasses to figure this out. You want more chances to shoot. And the Blazers were a team that offensive rebounds, they didn't get themselves second chances either. 22nd offensive rebound percentage, bottom 8 in the league in offensive rebound percentage. They didn't get second chances. They didn't prevent second chances, and they turned the ball over a lot. Those are areas they must improve because that's what wins in April and May. Worry about June some other time. We'll dream about June. Let's worry about April and May and dream about June. The path has to be valuing possessions, a thing they absolutely did not do this year. Okay, to close the show. Suns got a new owner, and they're going to eat a bunch of money to make it easier to watch their team play basketball. It is the dream scenario for fans, something that Blazer fans should dream about. Let's talk about if it's realistic at all and why it's a true dream scenario in the third segment. Join me there, won't you? Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. This week, the Phoenix Suns announced, under new ownership, Matt Ishbia, who bought the team right around the trade deadline, just before the trade deadline, then signed off on the Kevin Durant trade, that they're moving all their I've covered a bunch of the show, is that regional sports networks are dying. They're dying. The model is going to die, and we're going to watch local sports in another way at some point. People still watch sports on TV, but they don't really watch cable. So something's going to happen, and the Suns are out in front of whatever that something looks like, because they are pulling their broadcasts of the games of the Suns and the Phoenix Mercury off of Bally Sports, the regional sports network that has filed for bankruptcy, and they're just going to put them on broadcast TV. They're just going to be on local TV for free, so you can watch all 82 games of the NBA season for free and all 40 games of the WNBA season for free. And Matt Ishbia said, there's always a way to make money. It's about marketing. And he was specifically talking about the Suns in the quote that I read. But it's the same damn thing. Here's the problem. The other part of this story, as reported across a couple different places, but I read it in ESPN as well as The Athletic, but they're going to lose a bunch of money doing this. Ishbia says they're going to lose tens of millions of dollars a year. A big way that sports teams, particularly in non-glamour markets, make money is they sign a favorable local broadcast deal, and that's a big part of their income. What the Suns are doing is they're saying, I don't give a hoot about that. We want people to be able to watch the games because it's marketing. Let me tell you what I mean by that. The Suns have Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, an interchangeable fourth player, Josh Okogie, Torrey Craig. For some reason, never Terrence Ross under any circumstances. Only when they're getting shelled does he get to play. But what Ishbia, what the Suns ownership is betting on is that you make the money on the back end. You might hemorrhage money, but the team is going to be pretty darn competitive and incredibly popular. So more people are talking about them. So more people are watching them. So more people are buying merchandise. So more people are invested. So you want to buy more tickets. So you want to go to regular season games. So you want to go to playoff games. And you can run up the price of the brick, because if there is more demand, because it's more popular, because you're reaching more homes, you're going to make money on the back end. Now, up front, you might lose a whole bunch of money. And I think this is pretty specific to the Phoenix market, where there's, where there's football, professional football, or college football. At least Arizona State is popular from what my understanding of the Phoenix market. You've got the Arizona Diamondbacks, who I don't think are particularly popular, but are surprisingly good at baseball this year. That's right. I know something about the NL West. It's like they're in a market where there's competition for eyeballs, and just making it easier to get eyeballs as a way to market the team seems really stinking valuable. And it's why ownership matters, because someone who's fabulously wealthy and understands how NBA teams work say, we can lose money, because I'm going to own this thing for 30 years and it's going to increase in value by like 1.5% a year. So by the time I sell it, it'll be worth 30% more than when I bought it. So I bought it for whatever the valuation was, like $4 billion to buy the both basketball teams and the facility. And it's like, sure, tight, like it's going to increase by 30% by the time I sell it. So my stake that was, he didn't buy the outright. He's not 100% owner or whatever, but he's a majority owner. So his stake, which was, say he paid $3 billion of those dollars. Cool. You make $1 billion. You're just making $1 billion on the back end. $1 billion. That means you can burn $10 million on broadcast television, knowing that it'll help you drive tickets, butts in seats, which helps you, if there's demand, increase the price because there's people who want to put butts in the seats. It helps you get renewals for season tickets, which is the main thing that NBA teams want to do, and it helps you sell a whole bunch of playoff tickets because people are invested because eyeballs win. Ownership matters because knowing that doing something immediate, okay, I own the team, I'm making an immediate channel where there's going to be on television and streaming as well. So if you're out of market, you can just stream the games. So it is why ownership matters. I'm going to do something bold. I'm going to do something immediately, and I'm going to do something for the fans because the money doesn't matter because I know I'll make it back. Because the asset is appreciating. Sports teams always get more valuable. Pretty much no example in the history of American professional sports of a team becoming less valuable. We're talking about 100 years of evidence to suggest that these teams always appreciate. Losing money isn't that big of a deal because a team operating at a loss can, like, I don't want to get too deep into this, but there's some valuable tax loopholes for businesses that operate at a significant loss, particularly at the scale that NBA teams do. Ownership matters because this is something that is directly beneficial to fans, is against the money-making principles that other of his peers are following, and straight up admitted the truth. There are always ways to make money. We will make our money back knowing we're going to lose money up front. Could the Blazers follow this? I don't know. There isn't the competition for eyeballs in the Portland market, so there's less incentive to say, make it free so everyone can watch. Because who are you really competing with? Like, first of all, the Blazers are on the Mariners channel. Obviously, the like MLS teams and NWLS teams, it's like, or NWSL, like, those aren't competing at the same level as the NBA. The Seahawks is just like, sort of, I guess you're competing with the Ducks and the Beavers football. Like, you're competing with college football and a little bit of the NFL, but you're competing with the NFL as a whole, not like regionally. I think there's not much incentive to do it. But if you're rooting for like why, among the reasons why having like deep pocketed, don't give a heck owners matters, it's stuff like this. It is doing a fan first aggressive move because you know that the money doesn't really matter because you'll make it somewhere else, or it's funny money anyways because you just bought a $4 billion frivolity. I don't think Portland can follow it, but man, is it great for fans. Man, is it great for fans. And it would be great for you, Blazer fans, because you'd be able to watch your team if you live locally. You'd be able to stream the games if you don't live locally. It would keep you connected. It would be, there is value in just the, hey, let's get eyeballs on this. And the Blazers have found a way to get more eyeballs on it for sure. Like their deal with Comcast, et cetera, and the larger broadcast territory into Montana and the Rocky Mountains and Alaska or whatever. I guess that matters. But to me, putting the games for free on KGW, back where they belong, baby, it would be really wonderful for fans, undeniably wonderful for fans. And I'm just never going to root for billionaires to make more money. Give it to us for free. Make it easy to watch. That's just the news of the week. I thought closing the show with that. That's a real interest for me. Guess what? We're going to do more player reviews the rest of this week, and I'm trying to line up an interview. We're trying to do an interview every week of the off season, and we'll roll out our player reviews. We're heading into draft season. Who knows if the Blazers make a draft pick, but we're heading into draft season regardless. So it should be a bunch of fun. Tomorrow's show, we're going to talk Trendon Watford, and we're going to talk Drew Eubanks, a double player review episode. Come back and listen to that one. That's Tuesday's show. We'll do 5 more of these. We'll do 5 of them every week. So come join us. Tell your friends to do the same. Make it your first listen. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.